excited and thrilled to be back on City Hall Plaza this morning. We are headed into our weekly City Council meeting in a bit. But as of this morning, the city has released the unofficial election results from yesterday's election, including all of the tabulated ballots that came in by mail yesterday to City Hall. And so those results are on the city's website and have been posted up this morning. So I'm very grateful to be here with friends, colleagues, community leaders, activists, and our growing coalition as we make our case for the next 7 weeks to the residents of Boston, but more importantly, build the infrastructure, have the conversation so that we will be ready to go on day one in office.
Councilmember Wu,
1% of the precincts reporting, Michelle, with 1% of the precincts reporting, why does your campaign feel confident enough to go ahead and declare victory? What did the campaigns know that everyone else didn't?
I am so proud and grateful for our operation organizing in every community. We had coverage at the polls all day, and as I was going around and visiting, I think we ended up with 14 stops across the city yesterday. We had volunteers and community members at each location throughout the day. And so at the end of the day, at each precinct, the machine spits out the results that are tabulated for that one precinct, And so we were getting those reports back internally and were able to see enough of margin that we felt confident we were moving on.
Are you concerned about some of the delays, though? Last night when everyone went to bed, you had declared victory, and it looked like Anissa George had declared victory. This morning when people woke up, it looked like the field had shuffled a little bit.
Yes. This is so important for city government to make sure that we are not only removing barriers for access, but ensuring that we are providing transparency all along the way. This was an unusual year. We just saw the very first opportunity for early voting and mail-in ballots to happen in a municipal election ever, just yesterday. And the early voting locations had not been finalized and vetted and formally approved until just shortly before the election, about a week and a half before then. So this is an opportunity for us as we're headed into the final to make sure we get this right as a city government as well, to have the processes and procedures and the learnings in place after having done this for the first time. The rules are slightly different for this election compared to last year's early voting as well. And so city workers were here until very, very late, or I should say early morning hours of today, ensuring that every ballot that we received was counted. And so I want to thank everyone for putting in that amount of effort far into the night. And we want to make sure that headed into the final, the locations for early voting are already set. They're clear. We need to publicize them so people know how to vote. And we'll put the procedures in place. I'm looking forward to leading and ensuring that we are not only getting everyone to the polls, but then handling those ballots in a way that is clear, transparent, and it does not put the entire burden on our city workers well after midnight.
Councilmember Wu,
Is this now a progressive versus moderate matchup?
This is the moment in Boston that our campaign and our coalition has been calling for a long time. We got in this race over a year ago, actually exactly a year ago today, to ensure that Boston would step up to meet this moment. We've been building in every single neighborhood about the big ideas, the big challenges, and the big solutions that Boston is able to put in place, matched with a track record and experience in 10 years in City Hall of getting things done.
Councilmember Wu, your opponent says your plans are unrealistic and that her approach is more pragmatic and a bit more successful. What do you think of that?
I've been in this building for a very long time. I'm now in my 8th year on the Boston City Council and proud of our track record of getting things done and in fact shifting the idea of what is possible through the City Council and city government. The fights that we have taken on time and time again to keep rents low, to ensure that our city dollars are supporting locally owned Black and brown businesses, to ensure that we are taking every possible step to boost renewable energy and step up in the fight against climate change. We took on issues that people said were pie in the sky, would be impossible to accomplish, but by building coalitions, working across all levels of government, and continuing to bring community members to the table, we knocked those down one by one. And so there's now a lot more to do. We are in a moment of urgency. I wake up every day with that urgency. As a mom with kids in our school system, living in a multi-generational household, we have to act in this moment, and we can't settle for just milling around the
She says you can't make the tea free and you can't mandate rent control as mayor. Is that true, or is that something you would do?
More than 3 years ago, we changed the conversation on how the city and region and beyond think about public transportation. This is a fundamental, critical part, infrastructure of how our families get to where they need to go, of how we think about climate, how we think about our racial wealth gap. I was
Can you make the tea free?
criticized
Can you make the
years
tea free?
ago.
Are you trying?
We have in pieces already. 3 years ago, people said it couldn't be done. Just a couple weekends ago, I sat on Boston's pilot free 28 bus. I was at a forum last week at Roxbury Community College, and afterwards, student after student came up to me and said, my life has changed because I live in Mattapan, and now I can get to school without having to figure out how to scrounge up the $2 for fares every other day.
Michelle, what do you say to the voters who are disappointed that no black candidates are really present?
This has been a historic field in Boston. I am deeply humbled and honored to have been part of this race and to have run alongside so many of my incredible advocates and colleagues in government. What has been central to every policy proposal that my team and I have put out is advancing racial justice, closing gaps in our city, and ensuring that we are centering the needs of Boston to step up and meet this moment. We will continue to fight for that, and the needs of the Black community, of Black and Brown residents across our city are urgent. They have to be at the forefront of any conversation that we're having about progress.
And one of your strengths is running for mayor. What is any weaknesses that you self-identify with as you take on essentially this role?
This is a time when we need every voice in the conversation. And so I don't think of it as one individual's pluses or minuses or resume against another. This is about making a decision for our city about which leader will open up the doors to City Hall so that all of us have a role in shaping that future, so that we are aiming for that bold vision of what is possible, backed up with the relentless, fearless leadership to make sure we're getting the details done as well.
Coming over here this morning.
We haven't gotten yet, and hope to incorporate some of them into the campaign, especially when it comes to outreach to Black communities. I've been in touch, whether by phone call or text message, with all of the other candidates in the race over the last couple hours to thank them for the incredible race that they have run, to thank them for being part of this conversation, and to emphasize that we will all continue to be working together in ensuring that we're fighting for people.
How do you think you're better or
How do
different?
you narrow the focus of your campaign going forward to the general? What separates you from the business?
We are fighting for the future of our city. This election is about the future of Boston, and we need to step up to meet this moment with the vision of what's possible, matched with a track record and decade of experience building coalitions to get things done.
Coming over here this morning, we passed maps and facts. There are tents set up, tarps set up. What is the first step you would take as mayor to clear up that problem? Problem for the people there and for people who live in the city.
This is a conversation that needs accountability and leadership and action. I've already begun speaking with leaders such as Suffolk County Sheriff Steve Tompkins, who is part of our coalition, to ensure that we are laying the groundwork for how we would proceed. We need to ensure that first and foremost we're expanding treatment options all across the city, working with our community health centers and this mecca of healthcare that Boston is in, and fundamentally recognize that this is a public health crisis on top of a housing crisis. And so I will, within the first 100 days, analyze, look at every single city-owned building, parcel, and property to see where the city of Boston could quickly accelerate supportive housing and ensure that we are providing that support.
How do you think you're better than the alternative
Can
choice?
you talk to the international audience about the historic nature of this race in terms of the minority and the racial support and how unique it is?
As a daughter of immigrants, I never dreamed that I would be in this, standing here today with so many friends who also represent knocking down so many barriers in our city over just a short period of time. We are standing in a moment when we have the chance to all come together and tackle the big challenges in Boston in a way that will have impact far beyond our borders.
Why are you different? How are you different from your opponent? Now we've got one-on-one. How are you different? Why are you a better choice?
From the beginning, this race has been about the residents of Boston and the moment that the city is in. We are putting forward the boldest vision, the building the strongest coalition, bringing together a multilingual, multi-generational, multicultural coalition that represents all of Boston to back up and get done what we need to do.
Your opponent isn't doing that?
I'm proud of the results we saw yesterday. We are going to get right back at it. We have our council meeting today, back to work, and then afterwards, we'll continue to be out on the campaign trail having conversations with Boston.
But can you characterize?
I have not heard yet from Secretary Wolf, but we'll continue to reach out to all of the leaders who are incredibly influential in our city and get everyone to be part of this.
Can you characterize your opponent's politics? You've built yourself as the most bold, most progressive in the race. What is your opponent? Is she not bold?
For me, when I got in this race as the very first candidate to announce a year ago, it was never about who else is running, because this is about the residents of Boston. We do have the boldest vision for Boston. We do have the longest track record of accomplishment. We have built the coalitions to get things done that people said were impossible time and time and time again. And we have that coalition through the campaign from the grassroots up. That is what we will continue to do in the next 7 weeks.
You've worked with Anissa for years. What can you say about her leadership?
Anissa is everywhere across our city. She is the hardest worker. She is a mom who I so admire. I'm just incredibly excited and moved to know that at this stage in this race, we have two BPS moms sharing ideas and connecting our communities to what's possible in Boston.
Michelle, the acting mayor came in 4th place. What do you think that says about the state of our city and voters today?
This was a conversation over many months about our city, and I am grateful to every single candidate and all of their teams who put forward ideas, who stepped up to reach out to voters, and who contributed tremendously, not only to the conversation of Boston, but doing the work over these last 12 months.
Michelle, you were always projected to do very well in this race, but some people have said that you're going to have a hard time growing your base. What do you have to say to that? Are you going to do that?
At every step in my political career, we have heard that it would be pointless or difficult to proceed. I remember running for council the first time, being told that it would be very, very hard for an Asian American woman, a young woman, someone not born in Boston, to be elected in this city. Each time I have found that the residents of Boston are eager to get involved in shaping our future. The residents of Boston are ready for more to come from city government, and to believe that we can lead the way on so many of the deepest issues that we've been facing long before COVID-19. That is what I know to be true. That is what I heard across the city at all the polls that we visited. People are ready to dig in for our city in this moment, and our job is to make sure we connect that energy, getting people out to vote in November, and then keeping everyone involved to get those changes done in office. Okay? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.